Hey, it's Professor Gugis, and we're here to talk about Module 7, which is a discussion of the world of pornography in our media environment. Don't worry, it's nothing explicit. It'll probably be the most boring discussion of pornography you'll ever have. But it's important for us to talk about it because pornography plays two reasons. Pornography plays a huge role in our media environment. And secondly, it's not discussed. It's something that has its power in large part because we don't talk about it, because we don't do the things that we normally do with new information that allows us to analyze it and decide whether it's good, bad, effective, appropriate, that sort of thing. So let me click on my little notes here. There we go. We're going to talk about today, we're going to talk about the ideas that pornography and its consumption is mostly hidden, what it actually contains, which is a little different than what you're normally taught pornography is, okay, how it's evolving, and why it's so important for us to discuss this. Okay. So the first thing I want to talk about, pornography, its consumption has typically been mostly hidden. Pornography has always been with us, okay? I think I actually did the research. I think the first sexually explicit film was shot in like 1907, something like that. It was like probably the second film anybody ever shot. They were like, oh, look, this camera works. Let's get some naked people in front of it, okay? But because of technology and the lack thereof, for most of the time that video has been around, we've had to be in public to watch it. When we look at the consumption of pornography, it absolutely explodes at a couple of points in history. Number one, when television arrives. All those movies, all those movie houses, all those theaters that used to be the only place that you could go to watch live video or watch video, now you can watch it in your home. So a lot of theaters went out of business. A lot of them didn't. They started showing films and movies that you couldn't watch on television in the 50s and 60s because there was no such thing as cable or anything like that. Okay, so we see a fairly dramatic increase in the availability of pornography. The second big revolution, of course, is the video cassette player. Now I can watch this stuff at home, and I don't have to go into the theater in those sketchy neighborhoods and hang out with those sketchy people. And boom, it explodes again. And of course, the most recent iteration of this is the internet and the online delivery of pornography, where you can watch it pretty much anywhere, anytime, and nobody knows until you're actually telling them. So our consumption of it is mostly hidden. We don't really talk about how much we view. And so it's important for us to take a moment to observe that it really is a significant portion of our media environment. As I like to tell people, if you want to know what males in the United States are taught on a regular basis, you need to understand the worlds of pornography and sports. And that will teach you a lot of the fundamental ideas that men in the United States are raised with. Okay, so how popular is pornography? Well, I think everybody listening to this video knows how popular Instagram is. Very popular file sharing site. Okay, we all go to Instagram, we all look at Instagram. Okay, and again, we're all willing to talk about it. Nobody says, "Hey, did you see this thing on Instagram?" And somebody goes, "No, I never look at that." Right? We're all comfortable with that. Well, according to Alexa.com, which is an Amazon service that tracks web traffic, today, what is this? March 26th, 2020, when I recorded this, okay, Instagram is the 21st most popular website. It's the 21st most visited website in the United States. The reason I mention Instagram is that the 20th most popular website in the United States is something with a crude name that I'm not going to repeat in the video, but it is a site where people log in to go look at people perform sexually explicit acts on camera. Okay, and we go to that, and that's just one adult. I crack up when they call that adult, like there's anything adult about it, right? But that's only one of the sexually explicit sites, and that one is more popular than Instagram. It is more popular than Instagram. As a matter of fact, I'm looking at the list on the side here. It's more popular than LinkedIn. We visit that site more frequently than we visit LinkedIn. Okay. Not only that, we average more than 11 minutes per day on that site in the United States. And again, it's just that one site. If you look at the top 100 websites visited in the United States, there are a lot of sexually explicit themed websites. So we understand that there is a lot of sexually explicit material that's available, and that we are consuming a lot of it. We're consuming a lot of it. Now, why does that matter? That brings us to item number 2. What exactly are we seeing in sexually explicit texts? Okay. Yes, we see explicit sexual acts. Excuse me. But it's more than that. Okay. Much like the world of sports, the audience for pornography is predominantly heterosexual males, and it's predominantly heterosexual males consuming it by themselves. They don't get into groups and watch these sorts of things. Okay? So why does that matter? Well, if you're trying to attract any audience, it's advantageous to show them in positions of power and privilege. Pornography is attractive to heterosexual males, not just because it's sexually explicit, but because of how it portrays heterosexual males. Okay? Now, again, we're going to focus on the majority of these texts. We're going to talk about the way that most of the stories are told to most of the people most of the time. Okay? Just like human sexuality, there is an incredibly wide range of sexually explicit texts. But in most of them, men are portrayed as powerful. Men are portrayed as the decision makers, and it's the man's desires that are important. Okay? In the world of pornography, heterosexual men walk around like godlike creatures. They are godlike figures. What they want, they get. End of discussion. So when we look at the narratives of pornography, what we're really looking at is a narrative of a power structure in which men are superior, more important than women. Okay. That's the big narrative that I want you to take away from pornography. There's a couple of others. I mean, there's once again, like most other areas of our media environment, pornography emphasizes the value that the idea that a woman's value is in her appearance and her sexual availability. Again, the stereotype there mirrors the stereotypes of femininity in the broader culture. It's just taken to an extreme in the world of pornography. But the big one you want to take away from that is the narrative about power and value as it's broken down in gender. All right, so that actually brings us to the third point, how pornography and how sexually explicit texts are developing, how they are evolving. Okay? And let's go back a little bit in history. Okay? Back in the 1940s, it was relatively difficult to get your hands on sexually explicit video. It was actually, actually really difficult. Usually somebody would come to town very literally with a projector and a briefcase filled with films, and all the men would gather in the town and they'd watch the movies. Okay? You didn't get to see very much of it at all. Now you can pretty much watch all of the pornography you want all the time. If you look at the sheer amount of material, it's been uploaded to a site called Pornhub.com, which actually does very good analytics about its audience. Okay, it's something insane. Like it would take you 193 centuries to watch all the videos that are uploaded there every year. It's crazy. There's a huge amount of material there. So, how do you get attention in an environment where there was a huge amount of competition? Well, it's just like everything else that we've seen at the evolution we've seen in other areas of our media environment. Okay, the stories get more simplistic, they get more graphic, they get easier to understand as a way of cutting through the clutter. So what we see is more violence, more physical abuse, and more verbal abuse in the texts as time progresses. It's very similar to the way that boxing has largely been supplemented and supplanted by mixed martial arts and ultimate fighting. Okay, those are more graphic, more extreme, and that helps cut through the clutter. Okay, makes makes the text stand out. And it's important for us to look at that because of what we just talked about. If we are assuming and we understand that pornography is about narratives of power and value, okay, and we see more and more physical and verbal abuse delivered by men against women, then what we are seeing is a more and more extreme example of that narrative being delivered to us. Okay. So that's the third thing. As pornography evolves, it gets more violent, more aggressive. Like everything else, it's a way of cutting through an incredibly cluttered communication environment and getting people to pay attention. So the last thing, why do we care? Okay, why does this matter to us? Well, two things. Okay, let's start. We'll start with our heterosexual dyad. That's the format we're going to look at this in. Okay, and we're going to talk about men and women. Okay, so pornography is, in effect, a huge online course. It's just like a big online class that goes on for years. And the audience, the members of this class, the students in this class, I should say, are almost exclusively males. And they're never late for class. They always show up, as we were talking about earlier with the web traffic figures, right? The first thing to understand is that from a very early age, young males are taught who they are, what the world is like, and how they fit into it through their exposure to pornography. They learn, or so they think, about how they're supposed to act, how a real man acts, okay? What a woman is supposed to look like, what happens and what you're supposed to do to get what you want, what you as a man feel is what's the word I'm looking for here? Your needs met. Okay, so pornography teaches men these things, and again, because we don't talk about it with other people, the messages from the videos go straight in, and they are never tested in the real world. We don't talk about these ideas with other people, so we never, really get to say, "Hey, I saw this in this video last night. What do you think about this?" Okay, we don't do that very often. So it's important to understand that the popularity of pornography and the messages that it delivers are in effect a teaching environment for young men, how they're supposed to behave. And if you take it out of the realm of sexually explicit texts, you teach them to understand where they are supposed to view themselves in the world at large, how they're supposed to behave, what characteristics they have. Okay. Now, what about the other half of the population, the people who are not watching? Okay. It's fascinating. As I always joke, I said, yeah, or as I, it's not even really a joke, but as I always say, pornography is like a big meeting of men where we get together and we talk about what we want from women and how we should treat women, and women are not invited to this meeting at all. As a matter of fact, women are only vaguely aware of the fact that this meeting is even taking place at all. Okay. So it's important to understand this from the point of view of a woman in this, again, this heterosexual dyad that we're talking about, this construct, because you need to understand that this is where we learn how we're, as heterosexual males, how we're supposed to interact with you, what our relationship is supposed to be like. As the researcher Gail Dine says, pornography isn't just images of people having sex. Okay? It is a philosophy. It is a way of seeing the world. It's an ideology. So those are the four ideas I wanted to talk about today. The fact that while we consume a lot of pornography, we don't really talk about it, so we don't really test those ideas in the real world. That pornography really is not just about the sexually explicit texts, but it's about the narratives of power and value. As time passes and there's more and more available, the competition for attention increases, and therefore one of the ways that we see the sexually explicit text changing is that we see more and more graphic violence and more physical and verbal abuse, almost exclusively conducted by men and aimed at women. And it's important because it is, in effect, a massive online, years-long course where only men attend and men learn who they are, what the world is like, and how they fit into it, particularly in their relationship with women. I'm Professor Michael Gugis, and thank you for listening.